You know what I hear a lot these days? Everyone on social media should have to use their real name. Anonymity should be banned. This is a bad idea, usually spoken by people who assume that the world treats everyone like it treats them. Anyone who's ever had to say something unpopular knows how important privacy is. It gives us the ability to speak, explore, and connect without fear of punishment from those who'd prefer we stay silent. Despite what some people seem to think, anonymity isn't something that should be banned. It's something that should be protected. Wanting it doesn't make you dangerous. It makes you normal. Let me give you an example. The other week, I had dinner with a group of wonderful people, well-known economists, best-selling authors, people that I'd only ever known in a professional context. But that night, I saw a completely different side of them. Wicked humor, unexpected opinions, the kind of off-the-cuff brilliance that never makes it into a dense economics book. But for some reason, they'd never really understood my passion for privacy. Anyway, the next day I saw one of them again, and I said to her, "You're a riot. I had no idea that you were that funny." And she told me that she'd long been thinking of starting a separate X account. She said that she wanted to tell jokes and say things that didn't fit the persona people expect from her professionally. So she didn't want the new account linked to her real name. And just like that, she got it. She understood the value of privacy, because privacy isn't about hiding, it's about freedom. The freedom to be your full self, to explore different sides of your personality, to be more than one thing at once. That's something that we can all relate to. You might have multiple interests or roles in life, professional, personal, creative, and want to maintain separate identities for each. Or maybe you want the ability to grow and change your mind without the ghosts of old online interactions following you forever.
So I just got a call from the academy, and that call basically said, "Kevin, apologize for your tweets of old. I've addressed it. I've spoken on it. I've said who I am now versus who I was then. I've done it, and I'm in a completely different space in my life."
But privacy is also about safety. Maybe you want to avoid trolls or harassment, and you'd rather not have your address or your kids' faces posted by some stranger on the internet. Maybe you want to speak honestly while protecting yourself from online mobs that might target your job, your family, or your personal reputation. Maybe you don't want everything you say online to be permanently linked to your real name, in case in the future social norms change and you're no longer in the mainstream. But the stakes can be even higher. You might be an activist, a protester, or someone who risks persecution for your beliefs. And in those situations, social media becomes a battleground. It's where people rally support and boost morale in the face of repression. But if speaking your mind means risking arrest, how are people supposed to fight back? That's why privacy matters. For some people, it's for comfort. For others, it's for resistance. Whatever your reason, privacy is power, and we should be fighting to protect it. So how do you actually stay anonymous on social media? Well, in this video, we'll walk you through how to create and use social platforms in a way that protects your identity. But there are countless subtle ways that your identity can be compromised, even when you think you've covered your tracks. Some people think that if they want privacy, they need to disappear off the grid, but that's just not true. You just need to start with understanding your threat model. Who are you trying to protect yourself from? What are the stakes? Your approach should match your situation, and we'll break it down level by level. Let's go through some examples of different threat models. For example, hiding your opinions from your boss will require very different precautions than hiding from a hostile government that wants to target you for your political beliefs. Everyone's situation is different, but to keep things manageable, we're going to break threat models into 3 levels. That way you can figure out what kind of protections make sense for you. Level 1 basic protections are for people with a low stakes threat model. Level 2 advanced protections are for people with a higher threat model. Level 3 extreme protections are for those living under a hostile regime, where political dissent is dangerous, and the consequences of being identified online are severe. We won't be covering this level in this video, not because it isn't important, but because the stakes are too high for shortcuts, or the kind of advice you get from generalized privacy videos. If your life or freedom could be at risk, please seek help from experts who specialize in operating anonymously under repressive conditions. Some organizations that might be able to help include the Citizen Lab, Freedom of the Press Foundation, and EFF, so we'll post links to their sites in the video description. Now, most people watching this video will probably fall into the level 1 category, and anything beyond that might feel overwhelming. So if that's you, feel free to skip ahead to the end of the video once that section is done. I want to quickly mention that your approach will also depend on which social media platform you're using. Take Facebook, for example. It aggressively pushes users to use real names and actively works to de-anonymize its user base. You can only change your birthday a few times before they lock it permanently. They've been caught doing countless sneaky and wildly unethical things to collect data, like secretly monitoring the browsing activity of those who have the app installed. Other platforms are more flexible when it comes to pseudonymous accounts. X is one example. It still collects a ton of data about you, but it's a space where satire, personas, and anonymous commentary are common and widely accepted. We're not going to cover every platform because there are too many, and how they surveil users evolves constantly. Instead, we'll focus on general privacy techniques and apply them broadly to X, but the idea is that you'll walk away with strategies that you can use anywhere. Let's start with level 1, basic protections for creating a pseudonymous social media account. The goal here is to keep a clean separation between your online persona and your real-world identity. You're not being targeted, and you don't expect anyone to spend serious resources trying to find you. You're mostly hiding from the general public, and you want to make sure that even low-level platform employees can't casually connect your posts to your real name. And if your credentials ever leak in a data breach, you want enough precautions in place to prevent easy linkages. Let's start with account setup. For your profile name, avoid birthdays, locations, nicknames, or anything with an obvious connection to your real-world identity. You'll also want to make this unique and not something that you've used on other platforms or a derivative thereof. For email, don't use your regular email address. Instead, generate an alias using a service like Simple Login, or use a custom domain that you own that isn't publicly linked to your real identity. This email should be used for this account only and never reused elsewhere. Why bother with protecting your email when this isn't publicly visible on your profile? Well, data breaches are extremely common. X itself has past breaches that exposed users' sign-in emails, and it's bound to happen again. Assume that your login credentials will be leaked and choose an email address that won't lead back to you. Similarly, don't use your regular cell number. Instead, generate a new number through a VoIP service like MySudo or Cloaked, and use it exclusively for this account. Don't link it to anything else. Otherwise, if that number ever ends up in a data breach, it would be trivially easy to trace the account back to you. Next, let's talk about behavior. First, don't follow your real account or people closely tied to you, like your best friend, sibling, or co-worker. When you write tweets or fill out your profile, avoid mentioning real-world hobbies or your profession, specific locations, or distinctive personal details. And be careful with the pictures you post. Don't reuse photos from other accounts, because reverse image searches can link them. Consider AI-generated or royalty-free images. These steps will give you a solid foundation of protection against low-level doxing threats. If that's all you need, feel free to skip ahead to the conclusion for final thoughts. Otherwise, let's move on to level 2, advanced protections. Before we dive in, I want to be clear, this isn't just a step up from level 1. This is a big leap. Most people will fall comfortably into the level 1 category, but I wanted to include this section to help you understand the more advanced ways that platforms can de-anonymize users. So this section is for the curious and for those with a higher threat model, and it requires more sophisticated compartmentalization. If you're disciplined, You can reach a point where even the platform itself can't confidently link your account to your real identity, either through your IP, device, or behavioral patterns. And to be clear, this level is not for people in life-threatening situations or under hostile regimes. It's designed for lower risk scenarios where you want to increase your privacy but don't need to achieve perfect anonymity. These steps are for people who want to avoid profiling, not evade subpoenas. It's also not an exhaustive checklist or a guarantee, but it is a solid reference point if your goal is to get serious about how pseudonyms can be broken and how to prevent that from happening to you. So let's get into it. You'll need to start by doing everything we covered in level 1. Then let's add stronger compartmentalization, starting with account setup. If you're subscribing to something like X Premium, don't use your real bank card. A masked credit card service like privacy.com lets you generate burner card numbers tied to fake names and billing addresses, adding a layer of separation between your pseudonymous account and your legal identity. If your threat model is more serious, you might want to go even further, buying a prepaid card with cash or a privacy-focused cryptocurrency. As for the email and phone number associated with your account, you already set up solid protections in level 1 by using an email alias and a VoIP number. But if you want to go further, you can ensure that those accounts themselves were created in a clean environment without any links to your real identity. Again, this isn't something that most people need to worry about. It's a step reserved for those facing more targeted threats. Next, let's talk about metadata hidden inside your photos and videos you upload. One important protection is stripping EXIF data from images and removing embedded metadata from videos before posting them. EXIF data, for example, can include the make and model of your device, the time the photo was taken, and in many cases, your exact geolocation. We go into more detail in our video on metadata scrubbing, but in short, there are many tools that let you remove metadata from media before uploading. One neat trick that I like is to use Signal to do this. If you send a photo to yourself via Signal, Signal will automatically strip out the metadata for you. Now let's talk about device and browser hygiene. This is a longer section and it could go on forever, but let's talk basic principles. First, avoid installing social media apps on your phone. They usually have really invasive permissions, can access your contacts, device ID, installed apps, and run background processes that silently collect data. Many include third-party SDKs or code that extracts telemetry and behavioral information. Instead, access your social media accounts through a browser, and preferably a privacy-focused one. Such browsers sandbox your activity, restrict permissions, and limit how much data the platform can harvest from your device. You can see how well browsers compare when it comes to privacy by visiting privacytests.org. Now let's talk about fingerprinting. Platforms and third parties can track you using things like your screen resolution, time zone, font list, and system configuration. Privacy-focused browsers like Brave help limit this fingerprinting by blocking trackers, spoofing certain attributes, and reducing the uniqueness of your setup. You can even go further by disabling JavaScript when possible, and also by minimizing the number of browser extensions you use, which also acts as a unique fingerprint. Even if you use a privacy-focused browser, you should still make a habit of clearing out your cookies, cache, and local storage. These can persist across sessions and allow platforms to track you or even link your pseudonymous account to your real identity. Clearing this stuff regularly helps keep your identities compartmentalized. For even more separation, consider using a different browser for each identity. For example, Brave for identity A and Mullvad browser for identity B. This keeps cookies, history, and local storage isolated and generates different browser fingerprints that are harder to correlate. Another option is to use separate user profiles on your computer or even a separate operating system for different activities. This could mean running a virtual machine or using privacy-focused OSs like Tails or Cubes to further isolate your identities. And to go even more extreme, you can consider using an entirely separate device for your pseudonymous activities. It could be a computer dedicated solely to social media, and one that you never use to log into your real accounts. To level up further, you might purchase the device anonymously using cash, avoid stores with surveillance cameras, and visit physically disable or remove its microphones and cameras. Again, these last steps are for people with very elevated threat models. Most users won't need to go that far, but it's important to understand that each of these is a potential link that could be used to de-anonymize you if someone is highly motivated. Next, let's talk about network privacy. Start by using a reputable VPN. Many VPNs are shady data collection fronts, so be careful. I like Proton and Mullvad VPN. A good VPN hides your real IP address from the platform and encrypts your traffic. If you want to go further, consider paying for your VPN anonymously. Mullvad, for example, accepts cash in the mail. This removes your financial identity from the equation. If you're in a higher risk category, you might consider avoiding networks that are tied to your real-world identity, like your home, work, or school Wi-Fi. Instead, you can connect to social media over public networks in locations far from places associated with you. This prevents your real IP from becoming part of your metadata footprint if your VPN ever disconnects or leaks. Also be aware that your device can leak information via Wi-Fi and Bluetooth signals, such as probe requests and background broadcasts. These can reveal your location history and movement patterns over time by showing where and when your device has appeared near certain networks or other devices. For example, if you carry both your real phone and your pseudonymous device to the same places, they can be passively correlated, linking the two identities together. So be mindful about where you bring your pseudonymous device. If your threat model is higher, consider adding Tor as an additional layer. It routes your traffic through multiple encrypted relays, masking both your IP address and the destination. It's not foolproof against targeted surveillance, but when used carefully, it can be a powerful tool for increasing anonymity. Then there are your patterns of behavior to be mindful of. For example, if account A and account B always log in at around the same time, or use similar phrasing, or interact with the same niche communities, platforms can correlate them, even if you're using different devices or VPNs. To reduce that risk, try to vary your posting habits and maintain clear distinctions in your tone, language, and subject matter. Avoid engaging with people or topics tied to your real-world identity, and steer clear of references to events, locations, or communities that could reveal who or where you are. You should also be careful with interactions outside the platform itself. Promotional emails from social media services often contain tracking pixels or UTM codes, so don't click on them. In general, avoid unnecessary engagement with the platform. And when you do interact, do it strategically and in character. One important rule, especially if your threat model is higher, is to never discuss your pseudonymous activity with people that you know in real life. Even trusted friends can unintentionally expose you. And once that connection is made, it's hard to walk back. And finally, keep in mind that legal and jurisdictional risks vary. Some keywords, search queries, or behaviors may trigger automated surveillance or legal scrutiny. So make sure that you understand what kinds of red flags might apply to your region. One final area of advanced protections that I want to mention, especially if you're operating at a higher risk level, is rotating your identity and periodically retiring old accounts. The longer a pseudonymous identity lives, the more data it accumulates, and the more likely you are to slip up. It's good practice to rotate identities regularly. You might choose to periodically burn your account and start fresh, create a new email, VoIP number, device, or browser profile. But even within an existing account, you can reduce your footprint by deleting content that you no longer need. And while this won't erase the data from the platform's backend, it will remove it from public view and reduce exposure to data scrapers or automated profiling tools. Let's briefly reiterate what we said earlier about level 3, extreme protections. If you live under a hostile regime where expressing dissenting opinions online carries severe consequences, do not rely on generalized privacy guides. Achieving true anonymity against a powerful adversary is extraordinarily difficult. Governments have massive resources, including surveillance infrastructure, legal coercion, and advanced forensic tools. One small mistake can unravel everything. This guide does not offer operational security for high-risk environments. That kind of protection requires meticulous execution of everything we've discussed here, plus much more. If your life or freedom are on the line, seek help that is specific to your situation. Now for the good news. Most people's threat model doesn't involve being individually targeted by a government. Why does that matter? Well, because targeting a specific person takes time, effort, and resources. Instead, governments overwhelmingly rely on mass surveillance systems, fueled by data that you voluntarily expose. And that's why this is good news, because most of that exposure is preventable. This is why evaluating your threat model really matters, because in many cases you can make huge privacy gains just by making better choices without needing to overhaul your entire life. You don't need extreme measures to protect yourself. By using tools like VoIP numbers, email aliases, and privacy-focused browsers, you can drastically reduce how much of your life is available for collection. And by making small changes to your behavior, like those mentioned in Level 1, you can make it much harder for surveillance systems to track, profile, or link you across platforms. Achieving basic pseudonymity online is much easier than it sounds. Privacy isn't about hiding. It's about having the freedom to express yourself, to explore ideas, and connect without fear of blowback. And that friend I mentioned at the start, the one who wanted to tell jokes and share her unfiltered thoughts without it reflecting on her professional identity, well, she's just like all of us, just a regular person who wants a little space to be herself. Privacy is a completely normal thing to want, and you absolutely have the power to reclaim it. Start from wherever you are. Every step that you take makes a difference. The Ludlow Institute is a non-profit dedicated to advancing freedom through technology. If you'd like to support this mission, head to ludlowinstitute.org/donate. We also have a shop where you can purchase cool things that also support our mission. Do you have a pseudonymous social media account? Post it in the comments below. No, don't. It was a test. Don't ever do that.